I'm Ryan Milliken from Hardway Performance, and you're listening to the Diesel Podcast.
I'm Dimitri Miller with No Zone Diesel.
This is Anthony Raines from XDP.
This is Jaron Holder from Holderdown Performance.
Corey Willis from PPEI.
I'm Drew with D&J Precision Machine.
I'm Pinky.
And you're listening to the Diesel Podcast.
Diesel Podcast.
You're listening to the Diesel Podcast.
The Diesel Podcast.
The one and only Diesel Podcast.
What is going on, Diesel Nation? We're excited to have you guys on another episode of the Diesel Podcast, and today we're going to be talking about engine oils. And there's a bunch of questions that we've gotten over the last almost 3 years, and tons of things we've seen on social media with people asking questions like, should I run a synthetic oil? What does it do? Can it help my engine? I use this truck for work. Will it lower my maintenance costs? Or if you have a race truck and you're looking to make sure that that investment in your built engine, the turbo setup, all those things, can this product help me? So we're going to be talking with Mark from Amsoil, and he's going to be answering all these questions, tons more, and talking about the product line as well. There's a lot of other cool things that Amsoil offers besides just oil for our trucks. So we think you guys are going to love this episode. Before we get to it, we wanted to thank Diesel World Magazine. They're a sponsor of the podcast, and they are absolutely killing it out there with event coverage and write-ups on builds and new products and things like that. So every week, actually every day, I'm looking at dieselworldmag.com and seeing what new things are happening out there in diesel. We also wanted to thank you guys for the iTunes reviews we've been getting. Over the last couple months, we've gotten several hundred of them. And we use the reviews and the suggestions for topics to schedule our guests. So we want to encourage you guys to go on iTunes, give us a rating, and let us know who you want to hear from, or even topics. Topics have been really huge when you guys say, hey, we want to hear about a daily driver or a 650 horsepower build, or a budget build. So keep blowing us up on there, keep letting us know, and we'll keep getting the content put together for you. All right, guys, let's start talking about engine oil with Amsoil. Mark, I am really excited to have you on the podcast today. We are huge fans of Amsoil. I've personally been using it for years and years and years, and I got tons of questions over the last couple of years from our listeners to ask you guys, and we want to talk to you about engine, transmission, fluid, all sorts of different things. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. It's great to be on.
The most common question that we've gotten from guys who are driving Cummins, Duramax, Power Stroke trucks is, why should I choose synthetic over conventional? What are the benefits? What can I get out of it? What does it do to help my truck last longer, perform better, those sorts of things?
Without sharing my chemistry hat with you, I mean, we can try to make this a little bit more simpler for people to swallow. I mean, what you're getting in a synthetic product over a conventional are a bunch of the followings. You're getting a product that is providing a better film thickness, which is giving you better metal to metal separation. So all of your rotating assemblies, your ring to your liner interfaces, what I'm going to give you is a product that has better capability for longer terms, for more severe service applications, guys that are hot into the right foot. I'm going to give you a better capability to provide that engine better protection. I'm also going to give you, in a synthetic, the capability of better swings in temperature. So startup protection is going to be more immediate. Cold weather, temperature, I'm going to give you a little thinner film to give you better protection when it's cold. And on the flip side of that, when you start running hard and you're towing a bunch, or you're hot footing it down the street and that engine gets hot, I'm going to give you better high temperature protection as well. When the temperatures go up in these engines, the heat is the enemy to oil. Heat in a conventional typically breaks it down, develops some varnish, deposits in that engine, and it reduces the efficiency of the engine. What the synthetic will do for you is that it will provide you better protection against that heat, keep that varnish from forming. And what that varnish really does is it's starting to choke off all of your passages for oil to flow. Can get to a point where it can starve small things like the charger bearing. And it also reduces the efficiency, because oil, as we know, helps remove heat from the engine. So synthetic oil also has the capability of lowering your oil consumption. And all engines burn a little bit of oil. That's natural. Some formulas burn a heck of a lot more than others, but you want to lower the amount of oil that you're burning, especially with today's technology and the after treatment systems that are falling behind it. You know, a lot of consumed oil can spoil those systems and cost you a lot of money in maintenance. And then ultimately, you know, synthetics last longer in service intervals. So if you're the guy that, you know, uses your truck for business purposes, you know, and just can't get to that oil change on that given Friday when I've hit my service interval, we have lots of built-in protection to cover you to make it a bit more convenient for you to get underneath that truck and do an oil change.
It's interesting because a lot of the guys that I know that use the products, they always talk about, like, my engine is quieter now. I can see the temperature difference, and then also extending the services, which you just mentioned. I know a lot of hotshot guys or guys who are doing fleet service, things like that, like, they love it. And that was one of the other questions that we've had is, okay, if I can extend the service intervals, how do I go about doing that? What's the process? Do I just say, okay, I can go 15,000 miles now, or do they need to have testing done on the oil to make sure it's still in the ranges that you guys want to see, and then, you know, keep going another 3,000 or 4,000 miles, 2,000 miles? How does that work?
Amsoil has done a lot of testing in a variety of engines, whether it's pickup trucks to stationary to off-road to big over-the-road trucks. We have lots of data on oil analysis to demonstrate our performance in these applications. You know, if you're a guy that said, hey, I'm going to start using Amsoil, I don't want to change it as often, we have a warranty that we provide. If you use our product, we'll warrant our fluid to a service interval beyond what the OEM recommends. We know and we're comfortable with that based on the years of history we've been doing this and the oil analysis that we've collected in these engines. I mean, ultimately, though, you know, no two engines are ever the same. You know, go to any production line, and one engine that comes off the line and the one following it will operate differently. Knowing that, you combine that with no two operators operate the engines the same, nor drive them the same. The best method to do this is really through oil analysis. You take a little sample, you send it in. It's a chemical signature at the time of what the state of the oil is, and we do a bunch of tests on it, and we evaluate the oil's capability to remain in service and provide lasting protection, and then you can use that to prove that the service interval that you are using today is suitable, or you may be able to go longer.
That is really cool to be able to do that, because the oil change, I mean, the price of it adds up pretty quick, you know, especially with conventional and going through it.
You're right. The oil sample that you take in the oil analysis you do is it's giving your engine a bill of health. You know, it's like you going in for an annual checkup. This thing, you're doing this to try to figure out, you know, the oil might be perfectly fine in there, but you can also use it to discover whether the engine is having some other failure points. Hey, maybe you have coolant leaking in your engine. Or you have a bunch of additional blow-by from the engine for some reason, and you'll be able to catch that based on some signatures in the oil analysis. So it's a bill of health for your truck.
That's really helpful. There's some podcasts we've done with engine builders, and they go through the prices of what they cost when something, you know, whether it's with oil, you know, fuel in the oil or coolant or different things. And I mean, to have an oil analysis done and catch something soon rather than a $4,000 to $14,000 bill is definitely good as a diesel truck owner. The other part I was just thinking about is what part does the oil filter itself play in, say, the extended services and, you know, the analysis and keeping that oil where you guys want it?
The filter does one thing really well. The full filter that's really on the engine is there to capture particles that cause catastrophic failure to the engine. So a filter is really based on three things it must do well. It must be efficient at pulling out particles. It must have enough capacity in the filter to remove those particles for the duration of the service interval, and it must flow enough volume of oil in order to make sure that your engine is well protected. So that's how a filter is somewhat rated amongst those three things. And what you're looking for is the highest efficiency possible while being able to maintain the proper flow for the engine. And then capacity is somewhat of a design of the media itself inside, but also the size of the filter just in general. So when you strap a full filter to an engine, what I said it is, it's there to take out particles of catastrophic failure, and that's what it does. It's doing well at maybe 20 micron, 20 micron and larger particles. Those are the ones that would go through and plug up orifices, get in between your rotating assemblies, and cause damage. Some of the particles smaller than that, your oil can help manage. There are chemicals in your oil that keep those in suspension and small enough that they won't cause catastrophic damage, but they can cause long-term wear damage. So we at Amsoil have an additional bypass filtration system that we sell to customers that filter out particles down to 2 micron in size. So what the full flow filter can't capture, the bypass filter will capture, and then that'll take out those particles that long-term will cause abrasive wear and more longer service damage to the engine.
Okay, I see how it fits together now with the not just the oil, but then also the filtration, the service intervals, and I think that's where a lot of guys who are interested in going synthetic, they wonder how it all fits together. So you did a great job explaining to us. Okay, this is the engine oil you pick. This is a filtration you need, and then let's have an oil analysis done. Let's see what's going on. Let's make sure it's still in the specified range we want to see for performance. But then also, if we see anything else that might be unrelated to it, we can give you a heads up and maybe address a potential service issue before it arises.
Yeah, it's absolutely the case. I mean, and when you talk about this pairing of products, if somebody wants to get the best in oil protection for their engine, they also need the best in filtration protection for their engine, and that's where we pair our filters with our oil, and it does a really good 1-2 punch at giving your engine the best, lubrication and filtration possible. And if you were gonna, say use a synthetic oil and then use a filter that was not capable of the service interval that you're trying to get out of the oil, it can be dangerous. If a filter doesn't have enough capacity to match and pair with the service interval that you're going, the filter will be essentially plugged up, and then it will go into this bypass mode, which is a design feature of the filter, and then you don't get any filtration to your engine. So now whatever's in that oil is directly going right to all of your components that need to be lubricated. So it's important to make sure that when you're choosing oil and filters that you pair them together for the service interval that you're intending.
For sure, yeah, it's so interesting that a lot of the racers and even the guys that are towing, day in and day out that we talk to on the podcast, they almost all bring up oil. And one of the things that's, I think, coming up with these newer trucks, especially say 07.5 to newer with the stricter emissions systems on them, is what can Amsoil do for a newer emission controlled diesel engine that benefits them and the entire truck, the entire system that they have to make it last, to make it perform, to do the things that they expect out of their engine, which I think number one for diesel owners, why they buy diesel, is the torque and the engine lasts. So what is it able to do for that?
There's a couple things, and as engine OEMs are trying to design their new platforms and compete in this marketplace, they're cranking up horsepower and torque, in which you need an oil that is kind of paired with that increase in power. I mean, it wasn't too long ago these trucks were making 250, 300 horse, and that was max. Mm-hmm. Now right off the line they're at 425. So I mean that's a pretty big improvement on horsepower and torque, and you need a product that's capable of managing those increased cylinder pressures from the boost that they're putting into it and the increased power that you're putting on your rotating assemblies. that goes back to the film thickness I was talking about in our synthetic product. Is it's giving you a better chance at keeping that metal to metal separated through base oil and additives that we put in there for long-term protection. The other thing that the engine OEM has learned is that by increasing the heat in my engine, I can make it run more efficient. So, thermostats of 5-10 years ago used to be 175-ish degree thermostats. Now they're running 200 degree thermostats. By just increasing the temperature of what my engine runs at, the engine will be more efficient and produce less emissions. So the oil has to be able to manage now running at a hotter temperature. And when we talked about varnish formation and the oil breaking down and creating deposits and plugging up orifices, that's ultimately important to keep your engine from that varnish forming and keeping it clean so that it can transmit that heat in and out of it. And the last thing is, these trucks are strapped with some very expensive aftermarket, or not aftermarket, but after treatment systems. The thing has a DPF on it and has an SCR on it, and the consumption that your engine burns in oil, that those two systems don't know how to manage the oil that gets burnt. I mean, it does a good job of managing unburnt fuel, and then it regenerates and it burns that soot out of those components, but it can't burn out the metals that are found naturally in engine oil. They typically plug those devices, and then you're either strapped with taking them off and cleaning them, or you have to replace them. So oil consumption is important when you compare from a synthetic like ours to some conventional, that if you're burning a bunch of oil, that's not good for your after treatment systems. And then finally, the way that these engines regenerate, you have some, and that's GM specific in years after, but the rest of the group uses in-cylinder regeneration, and what they do is they plow fuel on the exhaust stroke. That fuel gets into the pipe, it ignites, and then it increases your exhaust gas temperatures and helps to burn that soot and particles that are trapped in your DPF. Well, when you push fuel in the exhaust stroke, it washes past your rings and your liner and gets into your oil. What happens there is diesel oil and engine oil, they mix diesel oil and diesel fuel mix very readily together. Those two then reduce the viscosity of your oil, and typically when you get a viscosity reduction of so far, you can start losing wear protection. So you want a product that is very capable of managing viscosity reductions based on fuel alone. So there's quite a few things that newer trucks can be suffering from, and it's important to have a product that is capable of managing all those aspects.
It is, yeah. There's so much more going on over the last 10, 11 years with these trucks that it's great to see that, like the OEMs have gotten a lot better with their systems and then become more reliable since the beginning. But then also that there's products as a truck owner you can use, like engine oil, to help with some of the byproducts of what the emissions controls are on them. The other thing, we were going to sit down and chat that I really wanted to ask you is we have like two types of truck owners. We have the guys who are doing cold starts. They are driving, crisscrossing the country, towing, doing those sorts of things. But then there's also the high performance guy. And when I first heard about Amsoil and I started using it 10 years ago, it was a guy that really just raced his truck. And he's like, you can do whatever you want with power, with all these other things, but you need to run this. And I was like, well, why do I need to run it? He's like, just trust me. Like, this is how my engine has stayed together, and he loved it. And a lot of our listeners are performance fans. They're, the trucks are being modified. They're doing tons of different things. They're maybe not putting a ton of miles on or doing cold starts, but what can Amsoil oil do for the high performance guys that are out there, whether it's a racer or a guy that's just taking it out to test and tunes or different events around him and having some fun with a truck that might be at 6, 7, 8, 900, 1,000, 1,400 horsepower?
Sure. We design our products for what I'll consider severe applications. Whether you're the hotshot guy ripping across the country towing, 15,000 pounds doing 80 miles an hour, or you're the guy that literally has cranked up his power and he's testing the limits of the metal that he has in his engine. We design for those extreme conditions. We have formulated our products to have exceptional base oil and its resistance to the forces that you're putting on it in these extreme conditions. And then we plow a whole bunch of really great additives into that formula to make sure that, in those shock loading conditions, when you're sitting watching the tree, spooling, and then you go to wide open throttle and you're in between the gears, there's a lot of shock loading that happens there, which, the film can only do so much, and then you have some other chemistry in that oil that's now playing protection mode so that you don't start spinning bearings or you don't start locking up your rotating assemblies, punching your rod through the block. So we spend a lot of time on the competitive circuit with formulas to make sure that when we pour oil into these engines, they're well protected for not only that quarter mile test or that run on the dyno or that 300 feet on the strip. We want them to do it repeatedly over and over and over with that oil and not have to worry about changing it because somehow whatever they did has affected the oil and you have to dump it out. That's one of the things that we run into the most is with competitive guys is they'll go compete for a weekend, they'll do 6-7 rips down the strip, and then they say, well, I got to dump the oil out, this stuff is shot. I mean, that's not always the case. I mean, we have lots of people we have pro pullers that do full seasons on the oil, and what they do is they take oil analysis to determine whether the oil's still good or not, and they keep rolling. But yeah, we design for these extreme conditions intentionally for those guys that want to, beat up on their truck a little bit and have some fun.
That's, I think, where a lot of diesel truck owners, it's where they see products. It's almost like a torture test in a sense. Like we watch DPC or UCC or different things that are out there, and we're like, okay, so if these products can handle these sort of extreme tests, it's going to hold up in my truck. And I mean, in the diesel community, you see Amsoil everywhere with different racers, with different just events. Even outside of the diesel industry, a lot of professional racers use the products. I mean, when I see them, I see the decals, I see the things that are out there. So it's proven on the racetrack, no matter what kind of track it is or what event it is.
Yeah, we spend and partner with a lot of different race teams, and that's how we do a lot of R&D testing, quite frankly. We take a bunch of stuff in our own lab and beat it up, and then we put it in our own dyno facility and we beat it up, and then ultimately we partner with lots of different competitors, and it is a means also to do some development, and these guys have found great success using our products and like you say, in a variety of different racing venues, whether that's dirt track, sleds, diesel, gasoline, tuner market, you name it. We try to play in all of these because the common theme amongst all these folks is I'm pushing this piece to the limits. I'm going to beat up on this thing as hard as I can in the spirit of winning, and the oil has to maintain its integrity in order to keep that engine running.
Now, the other question that I have wanted to ask for a long time, I've always been fascinated by, like, I don't remember what truck it was, some Dodge Cummins, I think it was a first gen, but you see like these trucks that have like 1 million miles on them, or like a 7.3 Power Stroke at this mileage, or a Duramax or something like that. Do you guys have something like that where you're like, okay, this customer of ours has used this product since this time and it hit this many miles? Something like almost like a Hall of Fame, for a daily driver or something like that.
Yeah, we have plenty of those testimonials from folks that have gone to the moon and back. We tend to focus all of our marketing on the things that matter most to customers, and that's protection. But there are people out there that that literally want to use this oil until they get the last drop of goodness out of it, and they do that for years and years and years. And we have pickup trucks that have 400,000 and 500,000 miles, and they've never turned a wrench on it. We have over-the-road trucks that have 2 million miles on the engines, and they've never done an overhaul, which is it's kind of uncanny. At the longevity of your engine when you use a product that is capable of providing it the protection it needs long term, So we do have a Hall of Fame of laundry list of folks that have done some amazing things with our products over the years.
That's cool because like probably 90 to 95, maybe even more percent of the diesel truck owner group, they're not going down the track per se, week in and week out, but they have a cost of ownership they look at, especially for businesses where they're buying, a fleet of diesel trucks and they're using them as how long can I make it last? And there might be other things with the truck like electrical things or other things unrelated to the engine, but how long can I make this engine last, get my money out of it, and keep my business running? So I think that's really important when looking at what am I going to put in this engine, whether it's a Cummins, Duramax, Power Stroke, whatever year it is.
Look at the price of today's pickup truck. I mean, I think there was a article in Diesel Power magazine where they vetted out all three maxed out to the hilt, at $95,000 or something, So I mean, if you're buying one of those things and you're going to use it and you want to get your value out of it, I mean, not only just the engine, you're talking transmission, differentials, coolants, fuel additives, whatever. You want to make sure that you're using the best that you can to make sure that long term that truck's going to still perform, so you don't have to pour money into repair parts,
Oh, for sure. Yeah, there was it was interesting. Not too long ago, I'm on the Amsoil website and I'm looking around, and the two things, my two interests and a lot of the truck owners' interests are combined into something. I didn't even know you guys made this, but I'm on there and I see like this banner pop up and it's Amsoil gun oil products. And I stop, I click on it, and I'm like, wait, I need to know more. So I wanted to ask you, I'm not sure if this is your expertise or not, but what kind of products do you guys offer for firearms? They're just as, I know there's a lot of things, a lot of oils out there and things like that, but I'm like, wait, Amsoil offers this, I got to ask, what is it?
That is a project that I led for this company and released back in 2016. So we did a lot of evaluation in the marketplace. We bought a whole bunch of competitors. We went and spent a whole bunch of time at the range shooting a whole variety of different firearms, and the same scrutiny that we put into all of our other fluids in terms of the performance and protection we want to give folks is exactly what we duplicated with the firearm products that we have in the marketplace. And we wanted to specialize in having two products. There are trains of thought of, hey, I want to use a cleaner, then I want to use a lubricant, or I want to use a product called a CLP, which is all of those things combined into one. I just want to run a rod down the barrel, wipe it down quick, and be done. But we wanted to specialize on providing the customer a really great cleaner, that makes that cleaning an easier task, and then follow it up with a lubricant that's going to give, that firearm exactly what it needs. The lubricant needs of a gun are much different than in an engine or a transmission or a differential, So we tailored that formula specifically for the needs of that gun, and then provided some great corrosion protection on top of that, so that you don't have to worry about sitting out in the field and it's pouring on you, or you don't have to worry about putting it in the case. It's not going to turn into a pile of rust before you can get to cleaning it. So it was a fun project to come out with those two products, and quite frankly, the people that use Amsoil, I don't want to make this probably too proclaimed, but they are gun-toting people too, right? They're outdoors folks, and outdoors folks typically get into, some hunting and maybe some shooting sports, or maybe they just go to the range and plink around. So it was somewhat of a natural fit to come out with a really high-performance product for our loyalist customer, even if they're just our loyalist customers that use Amsoil.
Oh, it was right down my alley because I saw it, and one of my biggest complaints with firearms is in the oil or whatever lubricant's being used is firearms get really hot and it burns off really fast. So whenever I'm done and disassemble it and clean it, there's nothing left on it. And I'm like, man, what am I doing to the rails? What am I doing to this? How about the bolt carrier? What can I do to try to minimize the wear that's on it and keep that lubricant where I put it? And that's really important to me.
Yeah, that's a great statement. I mean, guns, if in repeated fire action, they get warm, and that's another great advantage of synthetics over conventionals is they're going to be able to manage the heat that gun's throwing at it and still provide good protection between sliding components or pieces that need to move to continue that firing operation. So our product is plumb full of good additives for that application and a really good synthetic base oil.
Now, on the cleaner, is that something like that you can use on the bore and on the whole firearm, or is it designed, mostly, just you can basically use the product on anything, whether it's a shotgun, bolt gun, semi-automatic, whatever it might be?
Yep. The products we have are not specific on, whether they should be used on a small 22 pistol or some big 50 cal bolt action gun. That we design them so they could be used on everything, whether that's black powder to any other shotguns, pistols, rifles, you name it. The cleaner is something you can hose the entire gun down and not worry about it, destroying any surfaces or removing bluing or, removing the finish on your fine woods that you'd find on guns. It's safe for all that, but it does a really good job of taking after the carbon materials that build up after firing rounds to clean that out. And it itself has some corrosion inhibitors intentionally so that, some guns don't use a lot of lubrication. This is a good product too, that if you just wanted to clean your gun or something at the end of the season, wipe it down and stuff it back in your gun safe, you can do that. It'll provide you great protection for storage, some term between seasons. And then you can take it out and before season starts, give it a quick wipe with some lube and you're off to the field.
Yep, so see when some of these hunting seasons roll around here in the winter, you get the cold start protection. Your firearm's good to go. You don't got to worry. And
oh, yeah. You're 100% right. One of the criteria is that we wanted to make sure that our lube was able to be used in cold temperatures. Our office is up in Superior, Wisconsin. It gets pretty wicked up here in the wintertime sometimes, and we've evaluated down to minus 40 below. So if you want to go and pull the trigger and stand outside when it's that cold, you're going to be all right.
That's so awesome, because what I've gathered, or even things, what manuals might say is if the temperature goes down to here, use this kind. If it's warmer, use this one. So I have to buy two different products depending what time of year I'm going to be outdoors. And I'm basically wasting money because one of them sits for 9 months out of the year. Where if I can just buy one, well, that's all I need to use all year long.
Yep, you got it.
Awesome. Well, Mark, I appreciate your time today talking to us and answering these questions that I've had, our listeners have had, and how Amsoil products can help trucks, whether it's a 12 valve or a 2018 6.7 Power Stroke, anything in between. And then also, some other things that you guys have that aren't related to vehicles that still take that same level of expertise and R&D and experience and everything you guys have and apply it towards other things.
No, I appreciate it. It's great to be on and share some insight into, not everybody likes to talk about lubrication, and, whether that's for an engine, transmission, differentials, or you name it. I mean, that truck needs great products, and we've certainly done the due diligence in making and designing products for anything from the guy that wants to just putz around town to a guy that really wants to beat up on it.
Don't forget, diesel fans, make sure and go to dieselworldmag.com. Check out what Diesel World's got. There's everything you want to know about diesel behind the scenes. Pictures, information, write-ups, details to help you build your truck or improve your tow rig or whatever you might want to do with your vehicle. They've got it on there. Until next time, keep the shiny side up.